In fear of hurting a woman, sometimes a man will just move on without explaining to her the specific reason for why he's moving on. There are things men really want their future wife to have, but they're not going to try to help a woman have those traits. Rather, they're just going to look for a woman who already does have those qualities and not date and pursue those women who they feel don't have those qualities. Here are 3 things a Christian man wants in a wife that he's not going to tell you. Number 1, a Christian man wants a wife who's not going to try to change the things that he enjoys in his singleness. What makes a man desirable to a woman? There's so many variables and qualities we could mention here, but perhaps at the top of the list, besides his walk with God, is that a Christian woman is attracted to a man when he has his life together and he's happy. No woman wants to come to the rescue of a man who seems to be struggling in every area of his life. Problems occur in the relationship, however, when the woman comes in and tries to change the very things about this man that originally drew her to him. Perhaps she starts complaining about all the time he needs to spend on his health. Or maybe she wants him to get home earlier from work rather than trying so hard to impress his boss all the time. A man, however, knows that the very things that attracted this woman to him required a lot of work on his part. And over the years, this man has actually come to enjoy the work. His soul starts to die when he just settles down with a woman. He knows he will have to compromise and make some changes, as she will. But nonetheless, he wants to be with the woman who wants to join his life rather than change his life. So are you saying a man shouldn't compromise at all and that we just need to do whatever he wants to do and don't ever verbalize our needs? That's not what I said. I just said that a man doesn't want to be with a woman who he feels like wants to change him in this dramatic way. Rather, he's going to look for a woman who can not make him choose. He wants her, and he doesn't want to have to choose between the things that he already enjoys in his life, like hobbies, friends, and work and ministry. Of course, there needs to be compromise. Of course, those things will change to some degree. But if it's all or nothing, me or that, he's just not going to choose that type of woman. Number 2, a man wants a woman who doesn't need him to solve all of her emotional needs. Of course, a good man wants to be there for his wife. Of course, they should help each other deal with the issues they each face in life. And a spouse is meant to help their other spouse with the emotional needs and desires that God has put on their heart. But some people take this way too far. Instead of treating their spouse like a good blessing from the Lord, they end up looking to their spouse as the blessing from the Lord. While men can certainly do this with women too, it looks different when a woman does it. For a woman who has an unhealthy dependence on a man that goes beyond what the Lord intended for marriage, usually this manifests in an overwhelming desire for the man to solve her emotional needs. She becomes a black hole of unhappiness that the man can never fill no matter how hard he tries. Eventually, he feels defeated because he knows this just isn't ever going to end. No matter what he does, she's never really satisfied emotionally with whatever he does. Proverbs 21:9, it is better to live in a corner of the housetop than in a house shared with a quarrelsome wife. If a man senses you're just emotionally unstable and you're asking him to fix those needs that only Christ can really heal in you, then he's going to avoid you because he knows he's not what you're looking for. Only God can fill that hole in each of our human hearts. While a husband and wife can be a great blessing to each other, only Jesus can make you truly emotionally stable. And lastly, number 3, a man wants to be with a woman who is happy in her role as a wife and mother without complaining about how hard it is all the time. Now, being a wife and a mother is extremely hard, and this point here is not to minimize that fact. And this is not to compare the roles and say, the man's job is harder than the woman's job. Both have hard jobs, and both the husband and wife will go through seasons where they are struggling more than the other. However, the point here is that nobody wants to be with someone who complains about the normal struggles and things that every person needs to do. Of course, if something out of the norm is happening, it makes sense to talk about it. And sharing your burdens with your spouse is certainly a healthy thing to do, as Galatians 6:2 talks about amongst Christians. But I'm talking about something completely different. I'm talking about an excessive whiner and complainer. A complainer looks at her roles in life and sees them as a burden rather than a joy. Again, being a wife is hard, being a mother is hard, but a man wants to be with a woman who also loves being a wife and mother, not one who seems to hate it and just does it because it's her job. If you complain about being a wife or mother and the things that this requires, then it makes him feel like you don't like the life you've chosen with him. Now, of course, all of this applies to men too. Complaining husbands are just as problematic. My emphasis here isn't to say women struggle with this more, men less. This video topic is just simply for women who want to know, what is a man desiring in a woman that he's not going to tell me? As it says of the Proverbs 31 woman, she is energetic and strong, a hard worker. She carefully watches everything in her household and suffers nothing from laziness. Her children stand and bless her. Her husband praises her. She's clearly a happy woman in her role as a wife and mother, and this is extremely enjoyable and attractive to her husband. Of course, in balance, we all have bad days. None of this means you need to be a perfect woman who's always smiling. That's not the context of what I'm saying. Hopefully you see what I'm talking about is the overall thrust of your life. Are you generally a complainer, or are you generally a happy person who's willing to do what God has called them to do? Here's 8 signs of a Proverbs 31 woman if you want to keep learning about this topic. I'm Mark from ApplyGodsWord.com, and until next time, God bless.